Hey guys, my name is Faustina, and for the past 3 years or so in prayer, I have felt Jesus speaking to me that he has made me to be like the woman at the well in Scripture. The woman who encountered Jesus and was so, blown away. She knew that he was the Messiah, and she just ran back, totally changed, totally transformed. She ran back to her village to tell everybody about the incredible treasure that she had found. She had found the Messiah. This is everything. This is everything that the whole world was waiting for. This was everything, and he was here. And she was a living witness, and that's how I feel that I am right now. I feel very much like the woman at the well, and I am making this video as my running into the village telling everybody about the incredible treasure that I found. But it's on the internet, so it's a little bit different, but still kind of the same thing. So I think that's who I am in this story. I'm the woman at the well. Now, I've already known Jesus for my entire life. I've always known that he was the Messiah. So the message that I have to share with you guys is a little bit different than the message that the woman at the well had to share with her hometown 2,000 years ago. The message that I have to share with you guys is still something really incredible that God is doing in these times in the world today. And that is that he is about to return mankind back to the original purpose for which he was created in the Garden of Eden before Adam and Eve fell. And right now he is, in a grassroots kind of way, little by little, raising up his army of the souls who will begin to live this life. Now, I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds too good to be true. I know that it's super unexpected. But honestly, in the end of this video, I'm not trying to convince anybody. That is not my specialty. I'm not trying to debate anything, but I am, in essence, I am the woman at the well. I'm just giving my testimony, my witness, that this thing that I'm about to share with you right now, you guys, it has become my life. It has transformed my entire life. I'm so serious. I feel like I'm in heaven on earth all the time. Even in the midst of suffering, even in the midst of pain, I cannot express to you how much everything I'm about to say to you, I'm not just reading words on the paper. This is my life. I feel like everything I'm about to say, I feel like it is truly, literally inseparable from every particle of my being. And this is, not anything, I don't know. I can't even express it. I'm trying to express right now. I can't express it. I could honestly I could talk for hours and hours and hours about the personal experiences I've had with the gift of living in the divine will that I'm about to share with you. But it is beyond, I don't know, reality for me. Honestly, I'm at the point where I feel like if this isn't real, then neither am I. That's how real it is to me. I'm the woman at the well, so I'm pretty passionate. That was my spiel. I'm about to get into it now. Okay, here we go. So basically, about 4 years ago, after I decided to make Jesus not only a part of my faith, a part of my life, but the complete, total center of my life, and after I really developed an intimate relationship with him, and he became my best friend in every sense of the word, after I had that experience, he led me to the writings of one of his servants, one of his daughters, the mystic Luisa Piccarreta. And she, in the Catholic Church, she is in the process of being canonized, and she is currently on the servant of God stage of that process. So you're a servant of God, and then you're a blessed. I don't remember the exact thing, but basically she's on her way to being a saint, but she's not a saint yet. She was born in Italy in the 1800s, and Jesus appeared to her. She was a visionary and a mystic, and he appeared to her pretty much every day. He asked her if she would be a victim soul and be confined to bed for basically the rest of her life, and she accepted because she was in love with him. And he told her incredible things. Jesus told her that he had chosen her for something very, very special. He said that he had chosen her to be the first soul who was born in original sin, to enter back into the original state of holiness that Adam and Eve had before they fell. So she opened the door. She was born in original sin. She opened the door for all of us to now enter back into that place. Now, he didn't choose her because she was any better than any of the other saints that came before her. He chose her because it was the right time in history. And also, he said he chose her because she was the tiniest, littlest, most weak and insignificant little soul that he could find on the whole face of the planet, past, present, and future. So this is not about being better than anybody else. This is not about what we can achieve on our own. This is, in choosing Luisa, who he says is the littlest, he shows us that you know, this is just how he made us. This is just what he wants for us. And like, it has nothing to do with our own strength. And yeah, we're not better than anybody else who came before us. Like, they're better than us, really. Like, anyway, everything that I've already said and everything that I'm about to say is what I have gathered from the Book of Heaven, which is the title that Jesus gave. So you can't make fun of it for being cheesy, because Jesus is the one who said to call it the Book of Heaven. This is what Jesus calls Luisa's writings. These are the writings that he gave to her. This wasn't like an idea that she came up with herself. She actually hated writing more than anything. She was commanded by the obedience of her spiritual director to write down these things, and by Jesus, who wanted it. And she was super, super, super embarrassed because she felt so unworthy, and she, didn't want to be writing down these things like about herself. But ultimately, like, it's not about herself, it's about what God is doing in her. And Jesus needed her to write this because he wanted this to be for us. This is basically, it's so much. She wrote so much. Poor woman, she hated it. It was torture for her to write, but she wrote this all for us, and for love of Jesus. And most of the words you will see in here are the words of Jesus himself. He's going into so much depth about this great gift of living in the divine will. And the reason he calls it the Book of Heaven is because he says that in heaven, the walls are like written in gold, like with the words that are in this book. And like, honestly, I don't know if that's like an allegory or like symbolic or what that actually means. Like if it's mystical, because I don't know what heaven is like. But basically, Jesus says that this book is like so precious to him. It's like, he says that this will renew the face of the earth, and he calls it the call. I don't know if you can read this little thing here. The call to the creatures, to the order, to the place, and to the purpose for which they were created by God. So, if this is real, it's a pretty big deal, you must agree. Now, you don't have to believe that this is real and that this is from God, but I'm telling you that this is real and that this is from God. But if my little opinion does not satisfy, which I totally understand, I won't be offended, I also direct you to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has listed an official approval of all of this, all 36 volumes that she wrote throughout her entire life. The church has given it her nihil obstat, which means that Vatican theologians have scoured these writings, they have combed through them through and through, and they have found, and the church has officially declared that there is nothing in here that is contrary to faith and morals. Now, that is not the same thing as a declaration of the church saying this is absolutely divine, like you must believe this. That is not the case. It's not that big a deal. It's not dogma, it's not like anything like that. So the church has declared that there is no heresy in this. Keep that in mind, because you may hear a lot of Catholic voices out there, maybe even big names, maybe even people in the clergy, very, very sadly, who are really attacking this. They are saying that this is heretical. They are saying that this is demonic. They are saying that this is just absolutely from hell, and they really don't have a right to do that. Now, Jesus does specifically say in these writings that there will be people who don't understand what these writings are actually saying, and they will read certain things in these writings, and they will think that it contradicts Catholic tradition or the scriptures. But really, it's because they don't fully comprehend what the writings are actually saying. Because this theology is so incredibly deep, a lot of times there is so much room for misinterpretation. So that is something that Jesus has already specifically addressed. And you may see this like happening if you Google it. Like, there are some divine will groups that are going off the walls, and they're saying things like, we don't need the sacraments anymore, we don't need to go to mass, we don't need the Eucharist or confession. It's understandable why they may come to that conclusion based on some of the things that the writings say, but ultimately that is not what the writings are really saying. And like, most people in the divine will would not say you don't need to go to mass anymore. Like, you absolutely do. Like, you absolutely still need the sacraments. It's not going away. So that's just one example. There's a lot of examples, but I wanted to say that there is so much confusion out there right now surrounding this. But yeah, ultimately there is no heresy, because the church has already declared that there is no heresy. All right, now for the sake of this presentation, I have this little orange, and I don't want you to think of it as an orange though, and I will not refer to it as an orange. I'm going to refer to it as a sun, an S-U-N, a sun. And this sun is going to represent God. God lives outside of time, right? God always was, he always will be. But within God, within the mind of God, he actually had in mind all of creation. He had in mind you, he had in mind every blade of grass. Everything that ever happened in the world or ever will exist in the world happened in the mind of God from all of eternity. And it wasn't progressing in his mind in a state of this moment to the next moment to the next moment to the next moment, the way that we experience reality. The way that God experiences reality is totally different. And I don't know if I could even say experiences reality in the same way. It's almost as if he were reality. But he's a person. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But basically, God exists outside of time and space, but he had all of creation, past, present, and future, every moment, every molecule, and the big things, everything, all in his mind. And when he first created all of creation, he said, "Fiat lux, let there be light." And in that one act, he released everything, like all at once. And so we experience this life, this world from the beginning of creation with Adam and Eve to like the very, very, very end and the consummation of the world. We experience it in like a linear, like moment by moment, like state of being. But really, and scientists will say this, and honestly I don't really understand it, but like really time is an illusion. Like really what it is, there is only one act. You could say there's like a lot of different acts contained in one act, and it was all the mind of God. It's all the one eternal act, the one eternal operation. That's a lot. But basically, that is this sun. That is what is contained in this sun. God himself. For the sake of this analogy, God himself is this sun, and within God is contained all of eternity, past, present, and future, everything that will ever happen, etc. So, okay. Now getting back to what Jesus told Luisa about Adam and Eve, the state of Adam and Eve's soul before they fell into original sin. This clear crystal glass is an analogy for the way that Adam and Eve were created before they fell. And this glass does not represent Adam and Eve's soul, but in particular it represents Adam and Eve's human will. So the way that they were created was Adam and Eve's human will was made to be simply a vessel, simply a container, to contain the divine will, God himself. So it was interlaced and interwoven, and this analogy obviously won't even come close to doing it justice, but you can imagine it's like the divine will, which is this sun, this divine will was interlaced and like interwoven inseparably with Adam and then with Eve, because there were two human wills, right? Adam and Eve. This is the human will married to the divine will. And so Jesus tells Luisa that everything that Adam did and everything that Eve did, God also was doing at the same time. Literally, like his will was one with theirs. They were fused, they were one being. And like the will is a faculty of the soul, and the soul is also inseparable from the body. And so God, literally, Jesus tells Luisa that So in the Catholic faith, we believe that when the priest prays over the bread, it actually transubstantiates and becomes the body, blood, soul, and divinity living of Jesus Christ, right? Which contains, of course, Jesus contains the whole Trinity. So it's the same thing that happens, actually, with one difference, how it was with Adam and Eve. They didn't cease to be themselves. They were still themselves, but they were also inseparable from God. And his presence was in them in the same way, like his operating presence, his real life was in them, fused with them, literally doing everything that they did, in the same way that like he is in the Eucharist. That was the profound communion that Adam and Eve had with God before they fell. And Jesus tells Luisa that this same communion that Adam and Eve had before the fall is actually the same communion that all of the saints enter into whenever they get into heaven. Now Jesus tells Luisa that the original purpose for which mankind was created was basically to glorify God. And what glorify really means is basically to reflect perfectly like everything that God is. And Adam and Eve were able to do this because they actually literally contained God within themselves. And so you can imagine, I have this picture of a sun back here, and you can imagine there's two suns, and it's God. It's multiplied because he multiplies himself, truly. In the same way that he multiplies his being in the Eucharist, he multiplies his being in and inseparably woven into Adam. And so God is giving pouring out infinite love into Adam in every single instant, and Adam is pouring back that love, but redoubled, and through the unique and totally unrepeatable like essence of who Adam is, back to God, and like one with Adam's like free will, because right, it's the human will is the glass, and the divine will is the sun, inseparable from the glass. Now, because Adam contained within him God, and within God all of eternity, past, present, and future, everything that God made, absolutely everything, the return of love and the return of like glory that Adam was able to give to God was actually on the same scale as God, because it's Adam and God were inseparable, and so like they were able to return back all of eternity, eternal infinite love, back and forth, and this eternal infinite love between Adam and God was ever growing and increasing, which is, you know, a mystery because it's eternal and infinite already. And so everything in the garden was perfect. Everything was wonderful and incredible, and literally in every instant of this time that God allowed Adam to live out, like infinite glory was being given back to God, and infinite love was being showered down on Adam. Infinite love and glory, and God was literally glorifying himself. God was glorifying himself within Adam. It was incredible, and Jesus goes on and on, telling Luisa about what an incredible experience this was for him. Like, it delighted him more than anything. And so, but God is not a God of slavery, and he wanted to give Adam and Eve the choice of if they wanted to really love him or not, of if they really wanted to be one with his will. And so he gave him the option to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is the one tree that God commanded Adam and Eve not to eat of. He wanted to test that their love was true and pure, because if God had created a world where it was literally impossible for them to ever offend him, then their love wouldn't have been free. They would have been slaves, and God would have been using them for the immense pleasure that he was receiving from the love that Adam and Eve were giving back to him. Very sadly, Adam did not fully trust that God had his best interest in mind, and so he chose to eat of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And because it is impossible for God to sin, remember this for later, it is impossible for God to sin. Like, the divine will, the gift of living in the divine will, God himself, all of eternity, this perfect marriage that was like between them was ruptured, and God was sent, you could say, back into eternity. And now, because Adam had chosen to eat of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, he chose to fill his human will with something that he wasn't ever intended to fill it with. It's like filling a car with something that's not gasoline, something that's made to fill it, but with something that's going to destroy the engine. The human will is meant to be filled with the divine will, but Adam chose to fill it with something that was awful for him and that truly broke God's heart. And in that moment, it was as though Adam placed a lid over himself, and he had, consumed his own desires. His human will was full of himself, and God was back up here. He was not where he wanted to be, inseparably fused within Adam's will. And of course, the same thing happened with Eve, and it didn't take long, though, for the two of them. Jesus tells Luisa that Adam and Eve only sinned one time, and actually for the rest of their lives, they cried and they repented. They never sinned again a day in their life. Like, they were so utterly sorrowful when it was revealed to them the great evil they had done, because Adam was to be the head of all human generations, and because he was the head, it affected all of us, and so we were all born, you could say, like with a lid over ourselves and a tendency to choose evil. That tendency was passed down to us, and that is the mark of original sin, which the Catholic Church teaches that the Blessed Virgin Mary alone was exempt from. So, but other than her, who alone did not contain the mark of original sin and was conceived immaculately, all of us were born with this tendency to not follow God. And God's divine will was not inseparable from our own wills. God's divine will is now not operating within us in a way that it's as though everything we do, God himself is literally doing as well. So now Adam, Eve, and all the rest of us, we were very far away from being what we were before. So before the fall, Adam and Eve were living in the divine will. They have the gift of living in the divine will. That's what this refers to. But after the fall, the best thing that they could do was to try to do God's will. And so if Adam wants to do God's will, which he did after the fall, after he was filled with remorse, he, you could say, lifted off the lid to let the light in. And so it's like the rays of the sun, which signifies God, the rays of the sun were shining upon him, and you could say the sun was kind of like moving. This is an analogy of like, God is asking me to do this, so I'm going to follow him. And now God is asking me to do this, and I'm going to follow him over here. It's kind of like this. It's like it's a union of wills in the sense of like we're moving in the same place. We're trying to do everything. And of course, Adam's will is always free, but it's not a fusion of wills. So the difference between doing the divine will and living in the divine will, which is what it was before, is the fusion of wills. This doing the divine will became the greatest like form of holiness that any human could achieve because of the way that we had been broken. And I mean, for some people, it's a spectrum, right? Like some people want to do God's will, some people don't. You could say someone who really doesn't want to do God's will closes himself off. The sun is over here saying, come here, come follow me, come here, come follow me over here, and you're not moving, you're going over here. Like you don't want to know what God is asking you to do. And maybe someone who's taking steps towards God, like takes the lid off of them so that they can begin to be penetrated by the rays of light coming out of the sun. And those rays of light, the more they follow, the more they listen to God, it actually kind of starts to take away these attachments that are within our will, this desire for things that don't like belong in there. Like the more you try to follow and do God's will, the more you will be purified. And I mean, yeah, this is all a choice. And like the greatest saints, like in our church, in our history, before this gift was given back to humanity, they like followed God's will like a T. Like they were on it. And like if sometimes this would kind of come back a little bit, it would go right out again. Like they were on it, and they ended up being in such a state of union that they would follow him like wherever he went, like almost just at the exact same time without like any difference, because their will became so like used to following his that it kind of transformed into being very similar to what his was. But before the gift of the divine will was given back to humanity, no saint was ever able to have this fusion. So there's a union. It's as though they're holding hands, right? It's like they're holding hands. But the fusion is what this gift of the divine will is, that is new for us since the fall, which of course, except for Mary. Now I want to explain like how Jesus says that this works into history in the writings. He talks about this. Now this is a chart of like our history. So you could say these are like the days, and every day signifies 1,000 years in history. So Jesus says that every 2,000 years, he renews the world. And so the first 2,000 years is like that first day. And this is counting after the fall. Like creation's here, then the fall, and then we start this day. 1,000 years, 2,000 years, day 2. And then every 2,000 years, God renews the world. I have a different video about this. It goes into more detail. But basically, the flood, and then another 1,000 years, and then we're on the 4th day, 4,000 years, Jesus comes, and he redeems mankind, right? Now, Jesus refers to this first, like, epic. I don't know if epic is the right word, but, like, this first section. There's 3 sections. He refers to them as 3 fiats, and each fiat is, like, is specifically assigned to a person of the Trinity. So the fiat of creation is the Father. The fiat of redemption is the Son. The fiat of sanctification is the Holy Spirit. Of course, they're all operating in all 3 of them, but this is just the order of God and a pattern that he has. So the 5th day, 5,000 years, 6th day, 6,000 years, and this is where we are right about now in history. Mankind not only redeemed, but restored. And this is the Sabbath day. The 7th day is the day that God and man rest, right? And so this is ultimately a return back into the original order for which we were created. This is what Jesus says. This is where he says we are right about now. Of course, nobody knows the exact day, the exact hour, but yeah, this is exciting. This is where we are. But I want to express, so after the fall, Jesus says that he had, because the fall was so incredibly far for mankind, mankind had lost, like, all of the infused knowledge that he had been given. Like, Adam lost so much. Like, he fell to this pitiful state here. And so God had to, in this desire to bring mankind back to this, he had to start a very slow process of first teaching man the 10 Commandments, teaching him about how to not sin, like teaching him about like very, very basic things. And there's like a slow progression here. And we have like great saints, right? We have great, wonderful heroes and prophets of the Old Testament before Jesus, like Moses, like Noah. And these great saints and heroes, this kind of ties into it, because there's a lot of people will argue and say that the great gift of the divine will, that's not fair. Like, why would it only be for these people right here when these people back here didn't get a chance to have it? But really, we've already seen this happen. Like, for Moses, for Noah, for other great patriarchs and heroes, for Abraham, my goodness, gave up the life of his son. Like, that's everything. These are great heroes who are far more amazing and holy than most of us today, certainly me. Like, it's not that they didn't deserve to receive the gift of the divine will, it's because it wasn't time yet. And it's not just the gift of the divine will they didn't get to receive. They did not get to receive Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. Like, that is something that is a great gift. This is an example of a great gift that was given to mankind. Like, this gift of the divine will, the gift of the Eucharist, of the gift of being able to have Jesus enter into your being, into your body, become like one with you. Like, there's like all kinds of like saints that will talk about how like the effect that it has on your soul in heaven. Like, those are incredible treasures that transforms you and helps you to grow in holiness at a really, really rapid rate. A rate of holiness to be achieved that wasn't available back then, is after this great gift of the Eucharist, of the sacraments, of the other helps of the church. So to say that, oh, well, it's not, God would never allow that a great gift of the divine will is available now for our times when it wasn't available for somebody like St. Francis of Assisi. Well, yes, he would, because he allowed St. Francis of Assisi to receive the Eucharist and have that great, incredible gift when he didn't allow Abraham to receive the great gift of the Eucharist. So that's just one example. So that's the era of creation. Mankind is slowly being taught the 10 Commandments, like how to live life, basically, obedience to God. When Jesus came, he not only redeemed us, but he taught us more and more about what those commandments really are about. They're a matter of the heart. And then we have 2,000 years of like the church growing and maturing, and we have all kinds of doctors and mystics like of the church who are helping us to understand the spiritual life on a much deeper level. So we have like mystics like St. Teresa of Avila who teach us like the interior life of prayer and like how to ascend to this state. Really, what she teaches us is how to ascend to this state of going from this and like kind of barely following the sun, because we can't really like, tell or hear like where he's calling us, and we're attached to sin, to lifting up the lid and bit by bit like following him, and bit by bit like clearing our will of all of the junk that's in it, until we can get to a place where we're so close and in union with God that he can basically just do whatever he wants with us, and we're one, we're united, although not in its fullest sense, but it's like we're ready for that. That is what the saints, the great saints of this period, of the era of redemption, that is what they taught us about. And we need them. They're so necessary. And like I say over and over again, like, they are so wonderful. They're more deserving of this gift than we are. The thing is, though, like, they're not bummed out about it in heaven, like, oh, like, I didn't get to have this gift, like, too bad, because actually, like, they are receiving so much joy and fruits and payback up in heaven because we are living in this gift. There's so much about it because it impacts all of eternity, past, present, and future. Because of this Son, which is God, which contains all creatures, past, present, and future. God contains all the acts of all the saints, past, present, and future. And so when he is inside of us and then we live our life one with God after having received this gift, then they are showered with like infinite joys in heaven. Like, they are getting a huge payback like for this. So it's not like it's not fair. Like, we're all one family, we're all one body, and like, yeah, nobody is more important than anybody else just because they like received a gift that like elevated things, because everything is shared in common anyway. And like, yeah, the saints have great, heroic, incredible merit. And so now we are right about here in history. Luisa was given this gift. She was the first one. She opened the door for all of us to receive it. It's happening bit by bit, little by little, that souls are beginning to live this life as they dispose themselves to receive this gift. But Jesus tells Luisa there will be a day when every soul in the world will be living in the divine will, and that will be the metaphorical seventh day. The 7,000th year about of human history. And yeah, sometime after that will be the end of time, and we don't know when that is, but this is about where we are, according to what Jesus tells Luisa in the writings. And yeah, so when Luisa received this gift, her soul, I'm going to explain to you what happened to Luisa and what will happen to us now. And Jesus tells Luisa that what he did with her, she had to undergo a lot more sufferings than we will have to receive this gift. She had to basically be torn apart and molded to get to a place to receive this gift. And it took Jesus like a long time to do this with her. But for us, he says in the writings that it's like the original is the most difficult to make, but the copies are easier to make after that. Yeah, bit by bit, this is what he did with her. He came to her and he ever so lovingly invited her to take off that lid, to decide that she wanted to be all for him, to decide that she wanted to clear her human will, because right, this clear thing signifies the human will. These are the things we want. She decided to clear her human will of everything that it wanted that was not God, from her own desires, from her own dreams, from her own goals, from her attachments to food, to pleasures, to relationships, from her attachments to her own ego, from her attachments to, everything about herself, even the most like minute things, the attachments of those in the will. She allowed Jesus to clear them out of her, because with her will she decided that she wanted to, because she loved him, and he was able to enter back into her, and the fusion that happened in the Garden of Eden, that marriage between the human will and the divine will once again took place. And remember, this analogy is like, it's not just an orange floating around in here, it's like they're intertwined, interlaced, like every particle of their beings is like being woven together more and more in every moment that this happens, in every act, in every breath, in every heartbeat that the two of them do together. It brings them closer and closer together. And this is the marriage between time and eternity. Like, this is like heaven and earth are meeting. And Jesus says that this is the answer to the Our Father prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Because if you remember back in the beginning of this video, I said that this state of holiness that Adam and Eve had before the fall is the same state of holiness that the saints all have in heaven once they enter heaven. But it's very, very special to begin to live this life of heaven already on earth, because in that way we can glorify God, right? God is here, the sun here and the sun here, like from time, from the earth. And because we're living on earth and not in the state of infinite rest, which is heaven, like more merit is being earned. Like merit is being earned in every instant of this infinite glory ascending and descending. The gift of the divine will is very special, and it's very important for mankind, for humanity, because it allows the soul, it allows God to work so much more powerfully on the world and to spread more grace and like graces of conversion, graces of repentance, graces of anything all over all of the world, because he is the one doing it from within the soul. Like before, when it was just the soul trying to do it themselves, even if they really wanted it, like this is not like, there is nothing in this cup. Like there is no eternal God like that can like be given back to God. Like really, like you can desire it and intend it with all your heart, but only God can give glory back to God in the way, this is the way that he originally wanted it, right? And it has a great impact on the world, because if you think about it, if you can imagine Jesus, this is Jesus walking around Nazareth, and this is St. Francis of Assisi, all right? One of the greatest saints ever. And St. Francis, you know, he had the stigmata, he did all kinds of things, he suffered, he loved, he served the poor, he did everything. He did a lot of things. If you can imagine every single good work that Francis of Assisi ever did in his entire life, and you put it like all in one bucket, and then you put Jesus, the merit that Jesus had and contained in one little blink of his eye, it would far outweigh, like far, infinitely surpass the merit that St. Francis of Assisi did with his entire life put together. That is the power, and that's just like one blink of an eye. And like, this is, God contains everything that God is, everything that God did. And so like, when God is fused with the soul in this divine will, he actually shares and is able to multiply his own merit. So Jesus is able to multiply the graces that he won for us on the cross, because he's literally reliving his life in us. And when he when a soul in the divine will that is fused with Jesus in this way blinks their eye, Jesus is actually literally blinking his eye in them, and it is the same thing. It is infinite merits passing, transcending time and space, going over every creature, every created, past, present, and future, and showering down upon them infinite graces. And it's entering into all creation, because because this is infinite, you have infinite access to anything. It's entering into all creation and giving the Father infinite glory. Like, it's multiplying the glory, the reflections that has been given to him, like, which is actually at an exponential rate increasing the delights of all heaven. Like, with every soul that lives in the divine will, with every instant that a soul lives in the divine will, the happiness that is contained in heaven is exponentially increasing, right? Because the glory is going up, like the reflections of God. It's incredible. And all the saints, like St. Francis of Assisi, is so happy that souls are living in the divine will, because guess what? All of his acts that he ever did, they're all contained in the divine will, because God contains everything. And so when a soul in the divine will on earth, like, lives their life, steps, breathes, like, blinks their eye, it's like, it is glorifying, it's going back up to God, and everything that St. Francis ever did is also contained in that. And it's like the rewards that are surrounding St. Francis in heaven, they're being, like, illuminated, like, exponentially with just a superpower charge of divine love. And so his treasures that he has in heaven are actually increasing because little old us, like little old me, accepted the gift of this divine will, and I'm blinking my eyes right now. This right here is where we are entering into right now, and if you want to receive this gift right now, it is available for you, and God really, really wants you to, because he needs as many souls who are living with this infinite power, the infinite power of God himself. He needs as many of us as possible in the world right now, for the turbulent times that we're going into, in order to bring about this era where everybody will finally be at peace, and the whole world will be living in it. So this is an exciting call, an exciting time. You get to be a part of helping to build this kingdom of peace, the kingdom of heaven on earth, the answer to the Our Father prayer, and the return of all of humanity to the order, place, and purpose for which we were created by God. If you want to receive the gift of living in the divine will on earth as it is in heaven, this video is speaking to you. I'm going to tell you exactly the only thing you need to do. You need to take off this lid. Take the lid off your human will, and this taking off the lid is making the decision that you want to detach yourself from your own will, from your own desires, from your own dreams, from your own goals, and say, Jesus, I only want what you want, period. You need to detach yourself from all sin. You have to desire never to sin ever again a day in your life. Seriously, you have to make that decision. If you want to receive the gift of the divine will, you need to empty your human will of everything. That's it. You need to lay down your human will at the foot of the eternal throne and say, Jesus, I trust in you. I give you my will. I bind it to the foot of your throne now and forever. I never want to look at it ever again. I never want to know it. I never want to fill it with anything ever again. And once he sees that you're ready and that you've made that decision, that's it. The gift of loving the divine will is yours, and you are one with God, and it's incredible. And this does not mean that you're instantly going to be flawless. You're never going to have, like, temptations, and that you're never going to fall, like, but Jesus says that it's really about the will. Like, he doesn't care about the weaknesses that we have, because we still will carry the weaknesses of our fallen human nature that we inherited, but it's a matter of the will. Do you desire to do God's will only? That's what he's really after.